I'm going to press the record button right now. So in case you would like to share this webinar with any of your colleagues, feel free to send an email to sales@etteplan.com. Let me just go over to the final slide of this webinar, where you can see that this is the email address. Sales@etteplan.com is where you can send your requests to get a copy of the webinar, and we'll basically provide you with an FTP that you can download it from, so that you can share this with your colleagues, and your friends, your family, whoever you think would benefit from seeing this. So okay, so let's go ahead and get started. A little bit about myself. My name is Barry Braster. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Etteplan Etteplan. We, as a firm, have about 1,800 people or so. 350 of us are involved in technical writing, technical documentation. The rest are more on the engineering side. Etteplan and Etteplan combined actually have over 40 years of experience in providing industrial equipment engineering, technical product information solutions and services. We're quite large here in Europe. We have about 45 offices in the countries that you can see are mentioned here. We're actually a publicly traded company. We have shares in the NASDAQ in Helsinki. So just that as far as about who we are and what we do. Services that we provide, as I mentioned, it's basically end-to-end solutions, including a lot of that is engineering. You can see that technical product information slash technical information slash technical documentation is part of that. But we do offer a full end-to-end solutions to support the product lifecycle, and we do that for a number of industries, including plant engineering, electrical power systems, aerospace, defense, medical, pharmaceutical, IT, etc., etc. So, and this is just a bit of a variety of the clients that we work for. But maybe you can see your own company listed there, and if not, then well, maybe we can welcome you there sometime soon. Okay. The basis that I'm going to be talking to you about is literally all aimed at answering the question how we can get the right information to the right end user at the right time given any particular location. So for instance, as a field service engineer, if you would like to perform maintenance on a piece of equipment, you need to be able to get to the maintenance information as soon as you can. But how can we ensure that if we are still working, for instance, with paper manuals? If we, for instance, are not using consistent terminology, so that whenever the field service engineer types in a particular word, but because we didn't apply controlled authoring, Simplified Technical English, for instance, as one of the one of the items on the model here that I'm going to be discussing with you in a little more later on. What if that field service engineer types in the word A, however, in the manual it is stated as the word B because we use different words in that. So there's basically no consistency as far as the verbiage, the words that we are using. And how can we provide that information to the end user if we do not, for instance, work in a dynamic environment, meaning that we have our data, our technical information structured in data modules so that it becomes much easier to find. So quite a bit of a theoretic display I'm giving you here, but the webinar today is really talking about just one of these aspects, meaning how can we apply dynamic content, structured content to illustrations. Before I do that, just a brief word, because I did mention controlled authoring already. The Etteplan model, in essence, is based on universal standards for technical documentation. Meaning for text, we apply Simplified Technical English to make sure that we reduce the ambiguity so that people who read turn off the engines not required can either interpret it as turning off the engines is not required, or that you need to turn off only those engines that are not required. As a matter of fact, when we did a survey, we found that it's about 40 to 60% differential about people interpreting these sentences different ways, which means if you do that, you have a problem. Because if people misunderstand it, there's problems for safety, of course, but you can imagine how this can also help you save translation costs if you apply controlled authoring. Let alone, I mentioned safety already, but if you cut the power, and it has happened in the past, then these are some of the awful consequences as a result. For that, actually, for Simplified English, it's a service slash product that we offer called HyperSTE, meaning that we train technical authors on the use of controlled authoring, and we have software that can actually sit on top of your authoring tool like Word or FrameMaker or XMetal or ArpaText, and it helps you check your content for consistent terminology and clarity, so that you can save those translation costs, but more so you can actually provide your end user with information that he or she can very clearly understand. But of course, if we're talking about text, we should then also be talking about illustrations. The text will help you save translation costs. It can help you reduce your word count, 30% in reduced product cycle time, many of these benefits. But the idea, of course, is if we use that in combination with illustrations, we can even use even less text. And I'm going to be talking to you about that today and looking at it in a dynamic environment as well to get even more efficiency in there. Now, just to briefly discuss illustrations. We're talking about illustrations, but one of the questions, of course, could be, well, why not use photos? Well, there's quite a few reasons for using photos. The good thing about photos is that you can take them quickly. It's very quick. It's very easy to paste it in your Word document and to put them in that manual to work together with the text. However, it can contain a lot of redundant information, meaning that if you want to focus on a particular part of the machine and you have a photo that shows a lot more, you cannot really take things out there. Then there's a lot of information involved here that can be regarded as redundant by your end user. Secondly, you better make sure that you take photos the right way, because in this particular procedure, it's actually described that the users have to wear safety gloves and working boots, and they are not doing that. It contains codes here as well that are not clear and is actually not even related to the procedure. So using photos is one thing, but then doing a good job of applying that is another. But really what we're saying is use illustrations, which, yes, may take in the beginning a little bit more time, but if we do it correctly, then you can actually get a lot more reusability out of that, meaning that in the end, in the long term, it will cost you less, and will, not only in money, but also in time. Just a little bit show you the differences between photos versus illustrations. Before we have here, we have the after over here. What you will notice in the before examples is that not only is it a photo, the user decided to add text and numbers inside the photo, which of course, if you are working in a document that is printed on a color printer, then okay, you're good. But usually that's not the case because of cost savings, or because our clients, whenever they receive a PDF from you, they're going to print it on a black and white printer, or just create a copy of that. And then you can see in the before to example what is left of the illustration. And if you have text that is then referring to that illustration, then a manual basically becomes useless at that point in time. Where if you have an illustration here, you can still contain a lot of that information from here. So actually should say the A and B should still be appearing here. So the principle of simplified technical illustrations is not only, we call it simplified illustrations because we illustrate in such a way that we leave out the redundant information. And that means, in essence, means if you have different types of products, you can still use the same illustrations for those different types of products, because usually 70, 80, 90% of the functionalities of that product are the same, and that basically means that if you keep the illustration as generic as possible, you can reuse it. So that's why we're talking about simplified illustrations. The technical part is that we try to apply the principle of single sourcing to these illustrations, meaning that we take 3D source data, we turn it into a mother drawing, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, and then we create different configurations from that mother drawing that we then would be able to use inside the manual. So I'll briefly discuss the process here, and then I'll give you some practical examples. So if you have your 3D data here on top, of course the 3D data, you need to make a list of requirements as far as what your end user may need to see. In other words, what your technical author needs to communicate to the end user. Whenever we at Etteplan create documentation, it's actually usually a team of authors and illustrators working together because the author basically determines what he or she needs from the illustrator to show to the end user. And then, of course, what they need to do beforehand is just make a list of all the requirements, all the functionalities that the 3D data needs to show to the end user. And that's as far as the preparation is concerned. Secondly, you then need to basically apply the single sourcing aspect, meaning that you need to define groups. You're going to structure the 3D drawing. You're going to give it different ideas. You're going to create different layers and give those different ideas. In other words, whatever you do and whenever you have text and you create text in data modules, you're going to do the exact same thing with a 3D illustration. So you're going to split up the 3D illustrations into different data modules, and that is going to go into your content management system. Now, from that 3D data, you then create a master illustration, a mother drawing, so to speak, that has all the functionalities in that. And in practice, it kind of looks like this. So we have 3D that we basically converted to an SVG file. The SVG file allows us to create different layers within the same master illustration, which you can see right here. And wherever you see the red rectangular forms here, the squares, that means that you have 3 different configurations, but it all looks as one particular illustration here, actually divided into 3 different layers. Number 5 then, so we went from 3 to 4 to 6 to number 5 over here, which is the STI configurator. That's actually a tool that we have here at Etteplan. In essence, it means that the STI configurator, Hyper STI we also call it, allows you to publish those SVG files within your structured authoring tool. So for instance, if you work in structured FrameMaker, you would be able to open up the STI configurator and create your own configurations from the content management system and then publish them to different types of formats. Just the way it would look with text as well. I have one question in the meantime. SVG file for main drawing, is it correct? Ivan is asking. Yes, Ian, Ivan, sorry. The master drawing, just going back here, the master illustration, what we're currently looking at here is an SVG file. So yes, the answer to that would be yes. Okay, and then of course the publication, you would be able to then just publish to PDF, just the old-fashioned way, be able to print it. But the idea, of course, is whenever we go towards an IEDM, which is an interactive electronic technical manual in aerospace and defense industries, or just publish it online, or even publish it to service information system, which I'll give you a short demo about in a moment also. So a bit of a switch here to the more practical side. Again, we have the source data over here. That's the 3D file. We create the master illustration / mother drawing from the 3D data after we have already given this different ideas. So basically splitting up the 3D data in different data modules. This is all the 2D files that we need. And then from there on, we are able to create different configurations. Now, in practice, that would mean that, just to give you a before example, if we have the text here on the left-hand side, which is not very well written actually. It contains a lot of ambiguity. So we kind of rewrote the text into simplified English. But on the right hand side you can see the photos. And you can see that the photos contain, number one, a lot of redundant information, but if you print this into black and white, you can probably see that you will lose quite a bit of that information. So if we then apply the STI principle, then this is kind of how that would look. So we have the motor removal, we show step 1, we show step 2, and then down here we show step 3. Pull out the motor, step 4 actually. Release its screws, etc., etc. So very clear text working together with very clear illustrations. Not only was the text reduced by this just little part about 8%, but it's really important here that we use the same illustration. Now, as far as the reusability is concerned, in case we have these valves over here, 6 valves, in case in the new product it becomes 1 less valve, just as an example, then we update that in the 3D file. And guess what will happen in the publication? All of these will now be updated as well. So the 6th valve will basically disappear. So, and that's really where the single sourcing principle really comes to life. Give you another example with this particular procedure here on how to assemble a new motor. It's actually the continuous section of what we just looked at. Turning that into very clear, simple, short steps, working with the reusable illustrations for that particular procedure. In this case, we had a 10% reduction in words, and in the end, actually, there was a 70% time-saving factor for the illustrator, because you could just reuse everything. If we just go quickly, briefly over to the dynamic side, so we can, meaning that what I just showed you, you can print on the PDF and you'll have that information, which is great. However, it would even be better, of course, if we would make the content interactive. If we can have people, field service engineers, find that information very quickly. You can do that traditionally just by browsing through a manual of 100, 200 pages, which can take quite some time. But it would even be better, of course, if we are able to publish this in an item or in an online model in a service information system where people can type in keywords and to very quickly and briefly find that information. I say type in keywords, but the more, even better it would be to do a visual search using that same 3D file. So this is the traditional way that I'm showing right now, but really where we want to go to is, again, the single sourcing principle. Many standards are around for that, S1000D and DITA. I'm sure I mentioned 2 standards that are quite familiar to everyone. I say standards, but S1000 actually is a specification, which is even higher level. And DITA, of course, is a very good open standard for structure. But this is really where we want to go, not just with the text, but with the illustrations as well. And that basically combined makes up for the Etteplan model. Before I benchmark this, it's what I would like to do actually is just give you another quick demo where just to kind of show you how this would look in practice. And in order to do so, I will share my iPad that I have in front of me. Let me see if that is going to work. Hopefully it will. And with hopefully, I mean normally it does. Just a moment, please. Well, I guess this particular part is not working today, which is unfortunate. We actually do have a screenshot here on my desktop that shows the interactive content right here, how you would be able to use that. So now, while I work on this, let me also continue to just exit here and I'll just restart that particular program. That should allow me to start that part up for you. Just a second, please. As you can see, I'm in the Windows 8 environment. Let's go ahead and see if this will work. Here we go. So I believe you all have the version now on. Yeah, here we go. I'm able to share this with you. Now on the bottom side, I'm just going to open up a Safari browser that is going to show you an illustration on your right hand side. Now we have that one particular illustration, but on the left hand side you can see that some of the text is in green, meaning that because we work in an XML environment and because we have applied structure, we're actually able to link the text and make them work interactively with the layered SVG files. So if I click on open the feeder, we can see that it very clearly communicates to the end user where the feeder is. Next line, however, it says vertically or horizontally, but of course vertically depends on how you're standing in front of the machine, right? So when I say vertically, I can tell the end user this is actually what I mean with vertically, and this is what I mean when I'm talking about horizontally. Can even go as further than that, because we're working in an XML environment, it would even be easier to just turn this into a to basically give verbal instructions. So to link that to let's see if this works. You should be able to hear it. So I'll just close this so you can kind of get the principle from that. Going from the text in XML structured text to voice commands, which could be necessary because the field service engineer needs to use both hands to do a maintenance procedure, for instance. So he can get the maintenance procedures through voice commands, for instance. It's actually not that difficult. Why? Because we work in a structured XML environment. It would be very easy to convert from one another. Now I have another example here for one of our customers, Stork, where on the right hand side, even so though it's in Dutch, you may even be able to say when I click on schraper E is the word, then it highlights it in the drawing. And when I click on Bout C down here, it also highlights that in the drawing. But it's the other way around as well. I can actually click inside the drawing, which I'm doing right now, and you can get that exact same interactivity. The point here is that we want to get very highly complex information across as user-friendly and as understandable as possible. And the use of, again, STI from the publication side is allowing us to do that. I'll go even further. If I, for instance, open up a particular file here, and right now I'm looking at a demo for a chicken poultry device. This is nothing more, the service information system that I'm showing you right now, HyperSys, is nothing more, nothing less than a viewer of your content. However, if this content is written in Word and using photos, yes, then you may have a long way to go. But if you do things in an XML structured environment using your 3D files as a basis, then it would be very easy to do a visual search on a particular file. Now in this case it's published in the form of a 2.5D file, but if I click on certain parts within the illustration, it will tell me that I'm talking about a hopper. Or in case I want to empty the cover of the machine, it will highlight it in the illustration where that particular part would be on the bottom, and then I can ask either for a procedure on how to empty the cover, where it's going to take that procedure out of the content management system, telling me how to do this, even have that interactivity in here, as you can see. Or I can simply say, you know what, just show it to me. Show me an animation on how to do this. It's using the exact same 3D file to basically use that as an animation. So you can see the working quite effectively. Even being able to order that part straight from the service information system. The only thing that you need here is a connection with your ERP, and then you are done. So quite easy, as you can see. Now I'll show you another example that we've done for another customer of ours, where I'm just going to go back to the homepage here. where you would also be able to do a visual search using again those simplified technical illustrations. In case I click on the illustration, it will highlight that part to me and basically provide me with anything that I need, whether it's for maintenance, operation, or parts, whatever I need to, even for training purposes. It's whatever I need to do. If I, for instance, click, I believe, on the maintenance for this particular part, and I want to know about, let's say, pin locking, then I can go straight here to the maintenance procedure for this particular part, written in simplified English, using the 2.5D illustrations derived from the 3D, again communicating very clearly to the end user what it is that he or she needs to know. Even being able, if I don't agree, to give feedback to back to the technical author. Why do we need feedback? Well, how many times have you been on a working place in a factory and you see that people have written in your maintenance manual, they made their own corrections and suggestions, but how many times does that feedback actually get back to the writer? I can tell you right now it never does. So this is another way of facilitating that. Again, because we work in a structured environment, we are allowed to do it this way. So that being said, let me then go back to the environment that we were in earlier. I'm going to turn the mirroring off and go back to the presentation. Because what I next want to show you is that we benchmarked the Etteplan model. And if we closely look at 3D publishing, so using 3D illustrations, then actually companies that are best in class, we compare them to the industry average and the laggards to see most of them are using 3D or are complying with simplified English or are using structured documentation authoring tools, etc., etc. Topic-based authoring is also a very important part of that. Best in class are doing that, so really this is, if we want to become the best is what we do, if we want to be able to provide our end user, whether it's a field service engineer or a consumer, if we want to get them the information as soon as possible at the moment that he or she needs it, and regardless of the location that he or she is in, then this is something that we need to definitely consider. The benefits for simplified illustrations in that regard are that you can save quite a bit of time in the end, even up to 70% in illustration work because you're reusing everything. And if there's anything that needs to be adapted, you usually have to only make minor changes, and then the entire 3D, which will follow up into the 2.5D files, will all be automatically be updated. Single sourcing for illustrations. In addition to that, you can save quite a bit on translations, quite a bit on, if you combine it with simplified English, of course, quite a bit on documentation, and a lot on time to market. You create quality content once and you reuse it. So single sourcing for illustrations again. You improve the customer experience, reduce the time to market, liability, product damage are limited as well, etc., etc. It will really help you improve the product cycle time. Why? Because if we provide very highly technical information, which is really the end goal to our end user, then you may not necessarily even need a field service engineer depending on how complex your products are. And if you do need field service engineers, well, they're going to look good in getting things fixed fast. If you knew that Deloitte survey, actually it was a they did a survey a few years back that showed that a field service engineer, the time of a field service engineer usually is divided in about 25 to 50% of his time or her time goes into just finding the information. And if we can reduce that even by half or taking out the entire 50% completely, you can see how that can help you save costs, not just from a documentation point of view, but that entire product life cycle. So it can really help you save a lot on many aspects. So where to go from here? Well, there's probably a few questions that you need to ask yourselves or your managers or those involved with 3D illustrations. Number one, of course, the question is, do you have them? Do you have 3D illustrations available? Number 2 is, does your illustration software allow you to convert to SVG files? And another important question is, are you currently applying structured authoring? Meaning, are you working in a structured environment? XML, that would be great, but are you applying a standard like S1000D or DITA, and there are many more, information mapping for instance? Are you applying any of those, and do these standards allow you to publish your information interactively? Do you work with a content management system that allows you to do that as well? If so, then, and even if not, what we would be able to do to help you out with is to ask us to do a proof of concept. Let us have a look. We call it a quick scan / content reality check, where we basically do a quick scan on how your current information process is with regards to text, but also illustrations, structure, etc. In other words, we would mirror your content against the Etteplan model, and then based on that we can offer you a proof of concept and basically advise you on the steps that you need to take in order to be able to get that many types of cost savings involved, but improve the quality and make information very quickly available to your end users. As far as that is concerned, we also offer training on how to create simplified technical illustrations. We can look at again, the questions that we ask here, the top questions, the top 3 questions here is something that we would be able to look at together with you and see how you are currently doing it. But the most important question is, what type of information does your end user need? So we will really look into solving those issues. And that kind of rounds it up. If any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us. sales@etteplan.com or visit our website at etteplan.com to get a little bit more information about the whole STI principle. You can also visit us on simplifiedenglish.com for more information about the Simplified English aspect, as I mentioned, because illustrations do work together with text. And then Etteplan.com also is there for you to get any type of information on basically the full range of services that we offer as a company. So that being said, let me open up the question box here. See how many questions we got here. Marcelo is asking me, from the 3D model, the screw are a group and be selected altogether. Can we separate and insert in other sub-assembly? Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, whenever you do that step 1, Marcelo, meaning that you look at your 3D files, that's when you make your list of requirements of what it is, how far in depth, how much detail it is that you need to show to the end user. And from there you go on. So if it's just a 3D file of, let's say, a bike, and you only need 2 parts of that, well, then that's your list of requirements. But if it's a helicopter and you need about 1 million parts of that, then that's what you need to do as well. So that's really your list of requirements that you would do in the beginning. But yes, you can go in detail as much as possible. Ivan is asking SGML. SGML, Ivan, is the predecessor for XML. So if you're going to work in a structured environment these days, you will no longer work in SGML. You will probably work in XML because it allows you a little bit more flexibility. It's actually the next standard. It followed up on SGML. But if you have data that is still sitting there and you are not necessarily, so basically we're talking about existing data, legacy data, and it's in SGML. How do we work with that? It is possible. We've worked on several items for aircraft companies that had their legacy data still in SGML, and you will be able to provide that interactivity to your end users as well. But of course, it's not just the SGML files. We would have to need a look at the applied DTD as well, the structure. Fernando is asking me what file formats the attachments. What file formats is the attachments? I'm not sure what do you mean with that, Fernando. The attachments meaning what I showed you on the iPad. all the 2D files that I showed you is actually SVG. So those are the file formats in the 2.5D files. Another question from Carrie is, do you know if complex SVG files hinder iPad's performance when displaying them? It's a good question, because if they're very complex, of course, you're depending on how fast your iPad is, the processor on the iPad, to convert them. As a matter of fact, by nature, SVG files are very light. The first service information system we worked on, it took actually a little bit more time to load those SVG files, but these days we're actually able to load thousands of them and display them quite quickly. So Carrie, as a matter of fact, I can assure you that in due time this will become faster and faster and faster. For instance, to give you an example, if you are not on a wireless system, but you are working on a mobile system, so basically 3G, I'm sorry, by the end of this year, most of European countries will actually, just like in the States, will be able to use 4G for iPad as well, or Galaxy tablets for that matter, meaning that it will really improve the speed in calling for those types of files. Fernando is asking me no main and SVG files. I'm not sure exactly what you mean with that question, Fernando, but please, if you can elaborate on that, I'll be able to answer that in a moment. Marcelo is asking if we over the time have a same model update. How does the program support the updated model? Well, it's very easy, Marcelo. You let me just go back to that particular slide that gives us a little bit more information on that. So just showing you the process. If you're looking at the process right here, is whenever there's an update, you would apply that update here at the source. You apply the update at the source. And whenever that update is applied within the CMS, you save that, of course, in your content management system. Whenever people are in, for instance, on a laptop or an iPad, are retrieving that information from the content management system, they will always be able to get to the latest and greatest information. So yeah, you update that in the source, you save it in the content management system, and you are good to go. Let me see any other questions, because they're kind of coming in right now. Just a second, please. Just making sure I'm getting to all the questions. Just bear with me for a moment. Let me see. Get together. Do you know if SVG files? I believe there was a few more questions actually, but they seem to have disappeared now for some reason. Okay. I think that would be then all the questions. If you have any further questions, feel free to again email them to sales@titopress.com, and I'll be happy to answer these questions for you. So thank you very much. It is exactly 45 minutes later now, so that's great timing, if I have to say it myself. And again, just to show you the contact page information for this particular site. Here it is, and I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you very much. Again, this recording will be available by also emailing us at sales@titopress.com, and we will have a number of additional webinars in the next few months. They will be announced very soon on our website, titopress.com, as well as etteplan.com, and we look forward to, as a matter of fact, I personally look forward to giving you more information about any of that. So thank you very much, and we will talk soon, hopefully. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.